Hi, today I'm going to introduce you to configuring environments and variables and how you may use them in vREST. But first let me explain what is a variable in vREST. Variables in vREST provide a way to dynamically change the test case properties at runtime. Variables are of a format where the variable name is specified in two curly brackets. In vREST, there are basically three types of variables: global or environment variable, special variable, and extracted variables. We will cover each of these in detail in this video tutorial. So the first one is global variable or environments. Global variables are also known as predefined or initial variables. These variables are defined before the execution of test cases so that they can be used in any test case. Now let's see how to create a global variable in vREST. A modal window will appear like this. Here you may configure your environments by entering the name of your variable here and the value of your variable over here. Suppose we are creating a variable for base URL, so its value will be this. Environments are basically used to further group the variables according to the user environment. It is useful in configuring variables for different environments like dev, staging, prod, test, etc. Let's create a new environment and see how it works. Enter the name of the environment, say prod, and then enter the variables below. Let's override the same variable base URL in this environment which we created earlier for default environment. I'm providing the value as a base URL of my production application server. And also note that if share value is ticked, only then this variable's value will be shared with other team members of the project. Similarly, you may configure your other environments and their variables. You may put all your common variables in default environment. vREST first initializes the default environment and then overrides it with selected environment variables. Now let's use this global variable in our test case. This is our add contact API test case which we created in our previous tutorial. Now change the URL field to the use global variable we just defined. Now let's execute this test case. In Results tab, click on Show Execution Time Details. You may see that this test case is using the value defined in default environment. You may switch to another environment by just changing this current environment drop down to the desired environment. Let's choose the prod environment. Changing this will override the default environment variables with the variables defined in the selected environment. Now if you execute this test case, you may see in the execution time details that vREST is now using the base URL defined in prod environment. In this way, you may configure environments and define the global variables. The second types of variables are special variables. As we have already seen in our previous tutorial on response validation on the usage of special variables, you may use special variables only in setting the expected body for the test case. The special variable star is useful in ignoring some part of the API response during response validation. This special variable adds powerful response validation capabilities in vREST. Here in this expected body, we are ignoring the value of created on property in line 9 by using star variable in the value part. In the line 7, we are using star colon star. This means that we are just checking the country property in the address object and rest of the properties of address object in the line 5 will be ignored during response validation. Similarly, we have used star:* in line 10. That means we are ignoring the rest of the properties for the root object during response validation. So this feature is very helpful while validating large responses. You can also see here the request that we are sending, and this is the address part from where we are filtering our contacts search. The third type of variables are extracted variables. If there is a need of using data either from API response or from test case results, then one can simply extract that data and store it in a variable, and that variable can be further used in subsequent test cases. You may extract the data into a variable using the Variable Extractor tab. There are two subtabs in this tab: variables from API response and the variables from test case results. The first tab is variables from API response. Use this subtab to extract data from API response. Suppose you want to create the resource on server and then you want to update the same resource. So you may extract the ID property and then you may use that ID property in update resource API. Let's extract the _ID property of API response of this test case. Then just define a variable, say contact ID, and define the path as _ID. This _ID is the JSON path expression for _ID property of your JSON response. If your response is in XML, then you may use XML path here. If your response is neither JSON nor XML, or if you want to extract data from response headers, then you may even invoke utility method in this column to extract the data. Example, you may extract the session token received in the response headers by using utility method and use them in subsequent test cases. We will cover this scenario in upcoming tutorials. Let's see how you may use this contact ID variable in subsequent test cases. To demonstrate, let's create a test case for ViewContact API. We can use the contact ID variable in the URL in the ViewContact API. We will cover this in detail in our upcoming tutorials on request chaining. Variable from test case results. The second tab is variables from test case results. Use this tab to extract the test case results and store them in a variable, say tcResult. Now the variable has been extracted as tcResult, and there are some specific properties of this result variable, and we can use this variable as a condition in any other test case. If the value applied in the conditions section of the details tab contains is passed, then the value of this key will be true if the test case is passed, otherwise the value will be false. Or if it is executed, value of the key will be true if the test case is executed successfully irrespective of its results, otherwise the value will be false. Or if it is runnable, value of this test case will be true if the test case is marked as runnable, otherwise the value will be false. To demonstrate, let's use this ViewContact API test case, and in this condition apply this variable's property. Now this test case will only run if the previous test case has passed in its results or not. Now if we run both the test cases, as our first test case is passed, so our second test case is also executed. Now if we change assertions of our first test case to make it fail, then if we try to execute the test cases, then you may notice that the second test case is not executed due to failure of first test case. So today we learned how you may configure global variables and environment-specific variables, special variable star, and at the end extracted variables. To learn more about variables or environments, You may also visit our guide and then go to the Environments or Variables section in vREST Cookbook.